drive innovation and entrepreneurship in Taiwan, Taiwan government launched Taiwan Tech Arena in 2018 with the vision to transform Taiwan into a vibrant global startup ecosystem. In the 4 years, TTA has been dedicated to connecting startups with international resources by collaborating with 9 overseas and domestic accelerators. TTA has further attracted 35 entrepreneurial investors and imported their successful experiences into the Taiwan startup ecosystem. In addition, by adopting digital transformation approaches, TTA has brought startups to physically and virtually join important global startup exhibitions like CES and VivaTech for building global connection.
right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TTA's Master Gathering today. Before our event kickoff, here I have some general reminder for you that our today's event will kick off in about 5 minutes. So I think all of you are seated, but don't forget to switch your cell phone into vibration or silence mode. Okay, thank you very much. And the other thing is for COVID-19 prevention. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I think you already put on your face mask, but remember to put on the mask at all times, okay? All right, thank you for your cooperation. And later on, please let's look forward to the master gathering, all right? Thank you very much. And our event will kick off in about 3 minutes. everyone here and on live stream. Welcome to today's event, Master Gathering Net Zero by 2050 and the Green Future, directed by National Science and Technology Council, NSTC, and hosted by Taiwan Tech Arena, TTA. This is Wendy, your MC for today's event. Actually, I have a big news for you that today is our really special day for TTA's 4th anniversary. So happy birthday to TTA. Also, all right, and the first day of afternoon event of 4th anniversary is moved to TTA South, which means here. So through European Master, Domestic Index, academia, industries, and research institutions would like to lead all the guests to discuss how to use green energy and green technologies to develop a green new future. Also, we're looking forward to have more conversations with enterprises and startups to achieve net zero targets and creating more business chances in the future as well. So at the very beginning of this event, please welcome Director General, Department of Academic Industry Collaboration and Science Park Affair, National Science and Technology Council, Andrea Shi, to give us the opening remarks.
Okay, thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to TTA South. I'm Andrea Shi, the Director General of National Science and Technology Council, NSTC. TTA Taiwan Tech Arena just held its 4th anniversary this morning in Taipei Arena. I'm delighted to bring the celebration to TTA South. TTA South was established just last year, and we want to establish a wonderful startup ecosystem for Southern Taiwan startups, and to accelerate, to shine, and to go global. In addition, through this ecosystem, we try to initiate more cooperation with global partners to solve global challenges such as net zero circular. As we know, global temperature increase needs to be limited to 1.5 Celsius degree. That means it implies the carbon emission need to be reduced by 45% by 2030 and reach net zero by 2050. To achieve this goal, Taiwan government have to do more, including to strengthen the innovative entrepreneurial capabilities, to enhance academic research, and to collaborate with industries, and to work closely with global partners. Today, it's a great honor to have German Master Professor Stolten here to share how CCUS, carbon capture, utilization, and storage is achieved in European coal power plants and cement industry. Next, the Taiwan Semi Corporation is currently one of 40 iconic semi companies in the world. Chairman Lee will share their valuable experiences of corporate net zero cycle. Also, we have Vice President Peng and Vice President Lee to share how to enhance Taiwan's competitiveness in terms of carbon trading, carbon fees, and carbon taxes. Through this forum, I hope all of us could be the promoters of Taiwan's net zero national team and devote ourselves to avert the worst impact of climate change and preserve a livable planet for our next generation. Thank you for your attending. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Director General Shi. Please move forward to our stage for our opening ceremony and group photo taking. 好，那我们在今天的活动一开始呢，还是要先来一张大合照哦。所以现在也有请我们现场有莅临的媒体朋友，是不是可以往前移动一下您的脚步，帮我们来到前方捕捉一下接下来这个画面。And now we're also honored to invite our VIP to our stage as well. Please welcome Director at Research Center Jülich, Professor Detlef Stolten, who is now online with us. All right, and next we have Alex Peng, Executive Vice President of ITRI. 我们欢迎工研院的彭裕民副院长，也帮我们来到舞台上。Also, we have President of Taiwan Cement Corporation. 我们欢迎台泥董事李钟培，也帮我们来到台上。 Also, we have Vice President of Taiwan Research Institute 综合研究院的副院长，欢迎李坚明副院长 to come up to the stage. All right, and you will see they received the plant in glowing ball, which symbolize to declare or target net zero by 2050. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, please look to the front. 3, 2, 1. Yes. Industries, government, academia, and research institutes, we need to work together for carbon reduction. Thank you very much. All right, please raise the glowing ball up. Shall we need some more photo? All right. Thank you very much. Please return to your seat. Thank you. Thank you for your participation. And after that, we're moving forward to today's keynote speech today. On behalf of TTA, we're honored to welcome Director Detlef Stolten from Research Center Jülich, Germany, to give us the opening keynote speech today. And now I'll give you some more brief introduction of him. Director Stolten is a research scientist for Robert Bosch and Daimler-Benz for many years. And he's also chairman of the International Energy Agency's Advanced Fuel Cells Implementing Agreement. So now I give floor to Professor Detlef Stolten. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving it up for Professor Stolten. Hello,
Thank
Professor
you very
Stolten.
much. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can hear me and also see my screen now.
Yes, we can.
Okay. I would like to give you an introduction to net zero carbon emission and tech development in Europe. First of all, I would like to mention a little, why are we doing this exercise? We are now, we have a total influence of human climate warming of about 1.1 centigrade. This is from the IPCC. But what we really have is already, but we don't see that, an impact of 1.5 centigrades. And that is because about 0.4 centigrades are covered by other effects where we have negative, temperature negative climate effects, mainly sulfur dioxide emissions, but also some others. So that means, in total, what we see in disasters today, and we see a lot of disasters, one after the other coming, from droughts to floods and storms and ice cap melting and glacier melting, is not where we really are at. We are at much higher level once we cut out the sulfur and the other negative, climate negative emissions. This is one point. The other point is, what does really the climate change consist of? We have some minor contributions here, but we have two big ones. And the most well-known one is carbon dioxide. But we are always talking of carbon dioxide equivalent. And when I talk later, sloppily, of carbon dioxide in terms of EU targets, in terms of German targets, it is always meant carbon dioxide equivalent. And equivalent means we take the other emissions and recalculate them to the effect of carbon dioxide. If we do that here with methane, we see that methane is roughly 2/3 as bad as carbon dioxide today already. So we don't have a carbon dioxide problem only, we have a carbon dioxide and a methane problem. And that results because of the fact that methane, or one methane molecule, is as bad in the atmosphere as 30 carbon dioxide molecules, 30 times. So when we burn methane, it's a carbon dioxide problem. Once we have slip of methane, and I definitely address the farming sector and I address the fracking of natural gas, then we always have a slip of a couple of % of the methane, then we are doing a very bad job. So liquid natural gas is very bad if it originates from fracking and not from a confined source like it is in many cases in Saudi Arabia or in other areas which is work. So this is the background. How does the whole thing evolve? If we got to achieve the 1.5, this is 1.4, the IPCC calculated it like that, the 1.4 centigrade target, then we have to have negative emissions already at 2065. So this is dramatic when we talk of negative emissions worldwide. We have to go down very quickly, then we can keep that. Otherwise, we will be at roughly 2 centigrade. This is the blue line. But even in that case of 2 centigrades as a climate effect, and remember we're at 1.1 now, and what we're seeing, that means we have to have negative carbon emissions 2070, 80. So in any case, we have to have negative carbon emissions. So we are not done with the job just cutting carbon dioxide out. We are not done with just cutting the CO2 molecule out, but the equivalent components. The EU perspective is basically the Green Deal from 2019. What you can see here is a lot of single points addressed from energy to the industry as such, mobilizing the industry, farming, but it is also very important that the EU tries to do a just transition. So a transition which is fair and will leave nobody behind. Very difficult task. So the social or societal impact of this transition is very, very important because in the end, democracies need the support of the whole system, and that means of the people, and that means we can't leave people behind, or we can't even afford to have people who think they are left behind, whether that is real or not, or will be left behind. Financing the transition is very important too, because we, in a renewable economy, we have much less material to buy, but we have much more investment. That means compared to a coal power plant, renewable energy is, if it is at the same price, but the investment is roughly twice as high because it has to be done upfront, like in nuclear as well. So what does it mean in concrete targets? Reduction of minus 40% compared to 1919, that's always a reference, in 2030. 55%, and the Parliament wants to go to 60%, but we will end up at 55%, which are proposed. This is the current target. This is the target which will be in place. Climate neutrality by 2050 means net zero greenhouse gas emissions. And while we have a complicated process, the EU Commission proposes, the Parliament and the EU states have to agree. In the end, the states negotiate it again, and then the Parliament casts it into law. And the climate law was proposed in March 2020. Now it is being negotiated. Action plan and energy topics means energy efficiency is very important. The power sector needs to be addressed by renewable sources. Offshore wind production is focused on smart grids, hydrogen networks. CCS or CCU is the topic, but I have to say it's not the main topic. It's particularly a topic for industry where we cannot avoid the CO2 emissions, like in the cement, glass industry, where we have CO2 from the material we use, and not only from the energy we use. Energy storage is of utmost importance, because particularly long-term storage. The different sectors need to be integrated, circular economy needs to be set up, and another priority for the industry particularly is clean hydrogen. Then what also is a cornerstone is that the buildings need to be refurbished at a much higher rate than we do it today. And I will show you examples later that we are in some regards pretty much behind the schedule, but we need to save energy in buildings by insulation, by modern heating, by shifting away from natural gas, and so on and so forth. And natural gas plays a particular role in Germany now because we get it from Russia, and that's it turns out not to have been a very wise decision to be so dependent on Russia. Multimodal transport means that freight shifts from rail to road, waterways, and is seen not as one transports something in one or the other way, but as an integrated transport that we can save a lot of energy. Alternative transport fuels, this also addresses hydrogen, are important, battery electric vehicles, with their charging infrastructure, and boost research and innovation. Also the carbon pricing, so the economic effect, how we push the whole thing and steer the whole thing, is a very important point of the EU. Hydrogen, I don't want to go through all these points, but hydrogen is a key priority of the EU, and a 2030 target, which is pretty soon, it's in 8 years, is 40 gigawatts of renewable electrolyzers. Renewable means electrolyzer is not renewable per se, but renewable, renewably powered by wind or solar energy. Well, the German targets are pursued by the federal activities from different ministries. So it is not so easy to describe that. We have the Ministry of Economic, of Research, of Environment, Transportation, Agriculture, and also some more who are involved of that. In addition, we have 16 states which have their own strategies which fit into the federal activity, but point out their local requirements and sometimes are even stricter than the federal requirements. We have one particular point, the German Climate Protection Law from 21. On April 29th of 21, the German Constitutional Court ruled that the German state has to proactively prevent disproportionate limitation of fundamental freedom rights of the younger and future generations. This led to a change in the German law pretty quickly. So the climate protection law now requires a reduction of 65% of CO2 equivalent by 2030, 88% by 2040, and greenhouse gas neutrality by 2045. And these targets are laid out for different energy sectors. From 2050 on, it is laid out that negative CO2 emissions are intended. So how can all of that work? And that's where my institute comes in, modeling the results for the German energy system. This is not a German energy strategy, but you will see in the end, it fits pretty well to the German energy strategy. The greenhouse gas neutrality requires geological CO2 storage, which is now forbidden in Germany. But what you see here in the end is we take out CO2 from the environment in 2040 and 45. And part of that is biological CO2 storage. That means reforestation and these measures. And the brown part here is technical geological storage, where we take the CO2 out from the air. So that means direct air capture. And that plays a role in my institute because we got funded, awarded a big direct air capture storage project. And this is a particularity. We have to do that in order to save cost. So what we modeled here is a cost optimization of the system under the constraints of the climate conditions or the CO2 reduction conditions. I just told you 65% and 88% here. Then we see that hydrogen is crucial for the industrial sector and also for transportation. We have a pretty good gas infrastructure in Germany, natural gas infrastructure, which can be reconverted to a hydrogen infrastructure. And we are proposing that and laid out an optimized hydrogen infrastructure here. And these gas pipelines play a big role. It is very easy for us to reconvert that because one pipeline has very often multiple pipes, and therefore one just has to take one string of a pipeline and can run the whole system on hydrogen already at a time when natural gas is still provided. So you see here, hydrogen plays a very big role in industry. I will discuss that in a minute because in the transportation sector, hydrogen can be sold very expensively, but here it needs to be extremely cheap, and that is a big challenge. Reconversion to power is not a big but substantial issue. It is very, very important because in a renewable environment, we have variable renewable sources, and these can just stand still for some time, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that's what we calculated. And then we have to have something we can reconvert to electrical power, and that is hydrogen, which we can store in our case here in rock salt caverns, or we can buy it on the international market. There are different strategies possible, but it's not much, but it's crucial. In buildings, you can see hydrogen doesn't play a big role in Germany. It won't. So I guess I would just like to say hydrogen plays a role here for methanol production in steel and in process heat. That's important for high temperature processes where we can't heat electrically. So we can't heat by solar power or by wind power. We need to go and burn something. And the easiest thing we can burn is hydrogen, which we can produce out of electricity. In transportation, interestingly, trucks are focused very much on. I'm personally a little skeptical about that because trucks need to run 30,000, maybe 50,000 hours. The lifetime is very long. And if we want to go for implementing fuel cells in trucks in the first place and then do it in passenger cars, I think it's a little bit the wrong way because in a fuel cell passenger car, the fuel cell needs to live for 5,000 hours, and that is a much easier job, which can be done. But we're focusing very much here on hydrogen in transportation for trucks, and that means 20-ton trucks upwards, mostly 40-ton trucks. Here you can see the opportunity cost. That means 20 cents per kilowatt we can get in transportation. I said that already. And 2 cents per kilowatt hour you can get for steel making, maybe something in between 6-8 cents for the energy industry, including chemical industry for methanol, ammonia, and process heat. But reconversion to power can be pretty expensive because it is not that much of a volume. And so the challenge will be for the industry here to go to cut down the prices. It's not so much a price issue here, but here it's an issue of distribution and getting the fuel cell business run. Well, electrolyzers are important. Storage, we don't need technical storage in Germany. We have underground storage, hydrogen pipelines, and these rock salt caverns underground storage. This is, at least for Germany, the very important part, which is the energy transformation booster, as I call it, because this is an existing infrastructure. We don't need to build newly. We have in the ground, and there will be no resistance by the public to change that. That's already proven. Trucks can be easily set up and implemented, and ships are to be developed. That's very important if we want to have hydrogen in a greater deal. We need to have ships which are non-existent right now for hydrogen storage. Liquid natural gas, yes, but that's the coolest temperature. By 190 centigrades, we need 60 more, minus 250 for hydrogen. We can buy hydrogen from different areas. And what we can see is whenever we liquefy it here and transport it by ship, then it's more expensive at about 3 euros per kilowatt. Here it's about 2.3 euros per kilowatt if we get it from Southern Europe or North Africa in a gaseous form. So the gaseous form is very interesting, but again, it implements a system which is dependent on pipelines from other countries. So again, it creates a dependency, which we're just seeing was not so wise to install from Russia. So we need this dependency either from multiple countries or get totally rid of it. We reduce, and that's such a strategy, always the import quota, which is now 74% and will be in future around 20% only. And that is a very good tendency or trend because we are not so dependent anymore on foreign countries then, particularly not on one country, but also we leave a lot of money in the country. All of this will lead to twice the electrical power consumption. And you can see direct air capture here takes some. Heat pumps will be the heating devices for houses. We tried a lot to get hydrogen in because we are an institute which focuses a little on hydrogen, but hydrogen doesn't make sense in houses, at least not under the German conditions. So heat pumps are good. I'm only personally concerned about the cooling liquids, the fluids in the heat pump, because they have a very high coefficient for climate warming. And that means they are very, very bad if they escape. As long as the heat pump works and is tight, it's very good. Once these fluids escape, they are very bad in the atmosphere. So there is something to be done with heat pumps, but that's a technology we see for residential heating and also for industry low temperature heating. Then we have electrolysis in our strategy, which is a cost minimizing strategy. We came out that 50% of the hydrogen we will use in Germany will be produced at home and 50% imported. There's nothing we said. This is really an outcome of an optimization in a very complex program. And that translates here into 6 million tons at home and 6 million tons imported. You see the transportation part here in the electricity consumption, which is owing to electrical cars. And the EU now also cut out combustion engines to be sold from 2035. That means from 2035 on, no combustion engines will be sold anymore in Europe. That's a decision, except for some tiny opening where people say, well, we might use electric fuels or e-fuels, which are totally sustainable. The problem with the e-fuels is they will be 4 times as expensive, roughly, as hydrogen because of the very bad efficiency per kilometer. And hydrogen is already worse than electrical energy directly. So I think this problem will be solved just by the market. So there, I personally don't see any perspective for e-fuels in the sector unless one needs them for technical reason. In aviation, there might be a reason, but aviation today has very cheap fuel and then it will be very expensive. So there is really a rub. Power generation will rely on renewables very quickly. And what we see is the dark blue is here, I go to 2045, is offshore wind power, onshore wind power, solar open field, and solar rooftop. So if we see now here in terawatt hours, this is the power generation. it is pretty equivalent. So one can say wind and solar is pretty much the same. Wind is a little more in Germany, and onshore, offshore is not really the same, but it's very close. That originates from the fact that offshore wind power generation has 4,000 hours, a little more than that, as full load hours. So solar in Germany has 1,000 hours. So we have to install to gain the same electrical energy from these devices 4 times the capacity of solar installations compared to offshore. And that's why offshore is so important for us. We can install relatively small amount, it's still 60 gigawatts, but it's a relatively small amount of offshore wind power and have a lot of energy gain. But the disadvantage is we have it all in the north and we have to transport it all around the country. Here you see the effect because this now shows the installations, a few offshore wind power, but a lot of wind energy and very much solar power, but not so much solar energy. Seasonal storage is very important. You see here the storage curve, and you see areas where we cannot cover that with renewable energy. The last important chart here is the installed power we calculated for all of the strategy is this green line. And what the German government in the so-called Easter package, Easter 2022, decided is to have these blue dots as the targets of the installation. And what we have now is this red line. Here we are in expanding our installation. So we are way off what we need to do. The best year in the last 10 years is this yellow line, which we then extrapolated. It was just 1 year we extrapolated that. That would serve us until 2030, and then again, a big gap exists. So the message is we have to really gear this up. We have to really install a lot of renewable energy, which is possible. We have the programs which show that. And I also would like to show the effect. So today we have 1.86 megawatts per windmill. And if we assume 6 megawatts per windmill, then we need to climb up from 29,000 onshore windmills to 38,000. So it's not a big difference. If we use 7 megawatts here, it's even the same. So we won't destroy the environment, but we will harness a lot of electrical energy just by upgrading and installing bigger installations. So conclusions, we can afford it. The whole thing costs about 1.2% of the GDP, or as much as we need to pay for fossil fuel imports in 15 years. All of that is a very complex system, and I hope I gave you a glimpse of what is needed for future development, and thank you for your attention. And I would like to draw the attention also to my team, which made it possible that I can hold this presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Detlef Stolten, for your valuable information for us. And later we'll invite you once again to our panel discussion as well. All right, back to our topic. Actually, nowadays, many countries, especially threatened by climate changes, admit to achieve net zero emission goals one after the others. And many international enterprises, actually, they also declare to use multiple ways, such as renewable energy or raising the energy efficiency of equipment to achieve carbon neutral. But why net zero emissions so important, and how do we achieve those targets? I think you will find the answer in following panel discussion. All right, now Please invite our moderator to come up to stage, Executive Vice President of ITRI, Alex Peng. Please welcome. At the same time, let's welcome 3 honor panelists here. The first one is Director at Jülich Research Center, Detlef Stolten. Yeah, and he's already online. Please welcome. Also, we have Chairman of TCC, Taiwan Cement Corporation Information Systems Corporation, Li钟培董事长. Please welcome. Taiwan Cement Corporation Information System Corporation is not only the earliest cement company invested in environmental protection and carbon reduction, but also the first cement enterprise in Greater China area who passed the scientific carbon reduction target SBT. All right, last but not least, we have our panelist, Vice President of Taiwan Research Institute,李坚明副院长, who's an expert on international carbon trading market research, known as the father of Taiwan's carbon trading. And currently, he is the chairman of Taiwan Low Carbon Society and Green Economy Promotion Association. All right, before we officially kick off to the panel discussion, I have a gentle reminder to everybody that we will have a Q&A before we put an end to the panel. And also, the panel discussion will conduct in all English. All right, thank you very much. And now I give floor to moderator.
It's a great honor to moderate this important and very inspiring panel. And I would like to thank Dr. Xu and National Science and Technology Council to support to have this forum. Before the panel, may I ask all the young faces, I think you are full of hope and full of challenge. Yeah. Let me ask you first, do you think this is an impossible challenge, or this is a great opportunity for all of you? The first question is impossible challenge. If you think impossible challenge, can you raise your hand? Well, no one thinks it's an impossible challenge. A great opportunity for all of us. Can you raise your hand? Someone are still not so sure. I think everybody is honest, okay? So, some years ago, I read an article saying we human beings now have never been so rich, so healthy, and so wealthy, and yet so much uncertainty. The uncertainty comes from pandemic, trade war, and global warming. So we witness flood, drought, wildfire, and everything become a new normal. So I think this is really a great challenge for all of us, not just Taiwan, for the global issue. And the government have announced the pathway to net zero. And we have 4 important transformation. That is energy, industrial, social. What is the last one? It's hard to remember everything, but very important thing is just to do it, right? So we have 2 important foundations. One is R&D, another is regulation, government regulation. So ITRI is a role for government's think tank and also for the technology arm. So we form an office. We call it a Net Zero and Sustainability Office. I'm very honored to chair that office. So we really believe we cannot do everything alone. We have to collaborate with academic, industry, and also the government, and also the international, all the connection. So today, we will have 3 parts of a panel session. The first part is how do you see Taiwan from the global view? Another is the application. The final one is, what is our opportunity? So my first question will go to Professor, can I see Professor? Oh, are you still there? Okay, yes, Professor Stolten, great. It's great, you don't need to wear your mask, okay? All right, my first question will go to you. Since you have wrote papers and books, share your experiences in many fields, especially how do you capture the carbon dioxide from cement and power plant. Can you share some of your experience to Taiwan's industry? Can you start from now?
Sure, I will be happy to do so. First of all, the carbon capture is very much focused on with the German government, with cement plants, with glass plants, and as I said already in the presentation, with these technologies where the CO2 originates from the input material, from the raw material. There we cannot avoid it otherwise, and we have to go for this pathway. This goes along with the requirement of the chemical industry having CO2 for combining it with hydrogen to make hydrocarbons in future and plastics in future and so on and so forth. So it is intended to catch it there and use it in the other industry. How that exactly evolves, we don't know yet, because we have to have big demonstrations, technical demonstrations, so there's a lot of dust involved in the furnaces for cement production, and we have to see how we can catch it well, and then how we either transport it to the chemical industry, or the chemical industry joins the sites of the CO2 sequestration or CO2 capture. So these are the two options. And the other option, which gets no more important, is direct air capture. In direct air capture, we can achieve negative emissions, and we can avoid the very high prices, or let's say the very high cost of CO2 emission avoidance by technical measures. We can, in the last percentage of cutting CO2 or CO2 equivalents out. That means where it is very difficult to cut it out, we can either use bioenergy and then it's cut out in the cycle, or we take it from the air after we released it in another site. So that's the idea behind it. And that also would lead to some CO2 we can use in the chemical industry. But we have to be clear, whatever we use or can capture from the cement industry may be in relation in quantity with the chemical industry requirement. But if we started to cut out from the air and to sequester it from the air, the quantities will be way higher than we can use it as a material. So the last comment I would like to make is how did the German government assist the core power plant industry in CCS? And the answer is not at all. They will be closed down by 2038. The core industry, so the core power plants.
Okay, have you finished your sharing? All right, the next question will go to Dr. Lee, Director Lee. He just handed over CEO of Taiwan Cement Corporation, 台泥公司. TCC is the leader of Taiwan. I believe it would be the leader of the global cement industry to transform itself to a net zero company. I really admire its ambitious. And it's very tough, I believe. So can you share some of your view from now up to 2050? How can you implement and envision the 2050 carbon neutral?
So do you mind to sit here?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for EVP Peng. Okay. So globally, the CO2, 40% came from the power system, okay? Around 27% came from transportation and another 27% from industry, okay? So those are the priority, for TCC as a group, to reduce the carbon emission. For instance, we have the coal power plant, okay? So we try to use more biomass and also try to build the renewable, including solar and onshore wind and also geothermal and ocean thermal, okay? And for the transportation, okay, so we just acquired a company called Nova. That's a fourth largest storage company in Italy, okay, globally, sorry. And so we try to build the largest, the battery energy storage system in Taiwan. Total is around 430 megawatt hours, okay, and we hope we can start to commission in the second half of this year and also, the early half of next year, okay. So, and also for the EV charge station, okay, and also we have the most advanced technology, to do the V2G and G2V, so which means we can, use the vehicle back to grid technology to support the national power system, okay. So this is the second part. The third part is the cement, okay, and I think it's important because cement used to be, people believe this is high polluted and also high CO2 emission company or industry, okay. So actually, we set a target for the science-based by 2030 to reduce 31% of the CO2 emission in Taiwan and 20% in China. The reason why 31 and 20 is not like what professor just say 40%, because we use a different baseline. Okay, our baseline is 2016. Okay, so what we like to do first is use more alternative fuel, alternative raw material, and also we set the target for our ready mix, the concrete 2050. We like to reach the carbon neutrality. Okay, so actually there are 7 different kind of technology, including use more alternative raw material. For instance, carbide slag and also steel slag. Because carbide slag and steel slag actually they have CaO, so it's almost equal to limestone. Okay, so we can use these 2 chemical ingredient to replace the traditional limestone as a alternative raw material. And also for the alternative fuel, especially the biomass SRF and also the waste tire, they are very good alternative fuel, which will help to reduce a very large percentage of the CO2 emission. And also we try to invest in the carbon capture and also for reforestation. And also, again, I think for the green energies, the last mile for the world, because it's so important, in all the countries try to transform their power system for traditional fossil fuel, natural gas and also coal to more renewables. So those are the initiatives in the past 5 years. We do have the confidence that we can reach our goal. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think TCC really take a great challenge because every ton of cement production will generate probably 0.7 to 0.8 of CO2. So almost mission impossible. From Director Lee's sharing, he take every step, many different pathways, including renewable energy, even including geothermal, and in the future maybe replace the coal by hydrogen. So he will take every step and have a very quantitative target every 5 to 10 years. So I really admire 顾成远先生 to Director Lee and Zhang Yanping先生. They carry all this mission even 10 to 20 years ago. So the third question will go to Professor Lee. Professor Lee is a key promoter of Taiwan's carbon trading mechanism. And we know carbon trading could be incentive or it could be punishment. So how important of this carbon trading to Taiwan's market competition?
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I will say many thanks to the organizer to invite me join this very important panel discussion. For your question, I think firstly we need know Taiwanese company every year export more than $400 billion to around the world. So Taiwanese government, Taiwanese company is a key part of a global supply chain. So when we face the net zero emission approach, this will impact our global supply chain. So the key issue is affordable cost, in particular to reduce our CO2 emission. So this is a background of this question. So I will back to the emission trading scheme, the advantage, because under the emission trading scheme, the first advantage is cooperation. What means cooperation? This means if I abandon the carbon emission, if the cost is very expensive, then I can use carbon market to buy low cost carbon credit or carbon allowance to offset my carbon emission. So this is we say this is a cost effective advantage. So it's very, very important. So if our country has exists a carbon market, then the company can use this mechanism to lower their carbon emission abatement cost. So I think this is a key issue for this question. The second the factor I think is very important, the phenomenon in Taiwan, because we export. Taiwan is an export-oriented country, so we through the export our commodity to around the world and to make our GDP and employment. So, but you know, there are lots of CO2 emissions were left in Taiwan. So we export more cheap and more high quality commodity to around the world. So we have a very big contribution to around the nationwide. But the emission left in Taiwan. So if we cannot use carbon credit from outside to get the credit, otherwise we cannot reduce our carbon emission in Taiwan by our country. So I think the question is these two key factors, the key reasons. One is cooperation. The other is we can buy a cheaper carbon credit to offset our carbon emission, which can maintain our competitiveness in our global supply chain. So I think this is a main idea. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Professor Lee's suggestion is if we have the solution, you can sell your carbon credit. Otherwise, you should buy our carbon credit from other country. So it's very important that we should own the right and credit. But we certainly need the technology and need a business model to develop all the ecosystem. I guess because of the time constraint, I would like to put the two parts together so that we may have some one-on-one talk in the last stage, okay? So the second part and third part is about collaboration. Because we cannot do it alone, not just one company or Taiwan, we cannot do it alone. How can we collaborate, especially for Professor Stolten internationally? And for TCC, he has a global business, not just in Taiwan. I think in Europe, some are in Africa, right? And so my question will go to Director Lee first. How can TCC collaborate with the local, I mean in Taiwan and also in global business? How can you collaborate to speed up or to implement all the carbon neutrality process, right? One is from TCC point of view. Another is what is your recommendation to all this young audience? How can we also contribute something to the heavy industry like TCC? Can you share some of your view?
Thank you very much. I think this is a very important and good question. First, I think we need to follow international standard, because I think all the countries try to charge the carbon tax or charge a carbon fee, okay? But I think the only successful model is in EU, the EU ETS, okay? So actually we can learn a lot from EU, okay? So there are 4 steps. If we really want to be an international carbon trade player or really want to incentivize, the good students, which are the really, focused and like TCC, we almost spend 80% of our capex in the carbon reduction and also the pollution control. If you like to incentivize the good students like us, okay, so you need to, actually to apply this EU ETS, mechanism. So first step is, all the industry and all the companies need to know how to do the carbon footprint, okay? Because if you do not have the baseline and how much, CO2, emission is every year, so actually you do not have the baseline. So in that industry, for instance, you like to set the target, the second step, the allowance and quota. For instance, 10, 15% based on what? Okay, so it's very important. So there's a system called life cycle assessment system, and I think this is a very comprehensive system. Okay. There are 2 very famous. One is Gabi. That's a German system. The other is SEMAPRO. So no matter you choose which one, actually they have a very good database and help you to calculate scope 1, 2, 3. So your end-to-end all the carbon emission. So that's the first step. I think all the companies need to do. Use that system to calculate your carbon emission. Second is, I think the government needs to sit down with all the industry association and define, the target for next 5 years and 10 years. Okay, so you will set the quota and allowance, just like what EU did. So third step is, no matter is, carbon tax or carbon fee, the difference is carbon tax charged by the Treasury Department, carbon fee charged by the Environmental Protection Department. But no matter which one, but I think, this is just a temporary solution. In the medium term or long term, I still suggest, Taiwan and also, I think all the countries, need to apply the EU ETS system.
Yeah, really is a very challenging pathway. And from my understanding that the TCC, the the chair of TCC, Zhang Anping, told me that he had all the data in the PC. He can just put one button and know all the footprint. And if you change the coal, change the feedstock, then he will know the whole footprint. So I think it's very important you know everything in your hand. Otherwise, how can you forecast the future? Again, in the past 5 to 10 years, you were in TCC, right? How many years? 5 years. I think that's a very critical stage. It's a critical transformation of TCC from, we call it traditional cement company to technology, green company. So I think this is a typical example for Taiwan. How can you transform yourself? My second question may go to the Professor Lee. I think carbon will become a new economy, carbon trading. And how can we build up the carbon mechanism within Taiwan, and how can we, all the young audience or startup, to make the best use of the carbon trading system?
Okay. I think carbon trading is a key opportunity to face the challenge of net zero emission in the future. So if in our country can launch a localized emission trading scheme, I think it's very helpful to our CO2 emission reduction in our country. In particular for the industry sector. So I think everyone has heard the case of Tesla. Tesla is a very good example under the net zero emission approach. I mean, under this approach, if you have low carbon activity, you can get a green bonus, or we say you can get a carbon credit bonus. This is a very important key important issue to encourage the low carbon activity, in particular technology, to in innovation. So. If we want to get carbon, the opportunity of a carbon market, there are two things we can do. The first one, we need apply a carbon asset account in the internationally. In particular, I strong suggestion. Recommendation, a strong recommendation to apply international voluntary carbon market. For example, verified carbon standard, VCS, or gold standard. These two are very popular carbon credit around the world. So the first thing we can open or apply a carbon asset account. This is the first thing. The second thing, in the future, if we invest every CO2 emission reduction activity, we need to transfer this CO2 emission reduction to carbon credit. So we need use a methodology to transfer this reduction to carbon credit. So this is very important. So I think these young people, you can learn more knowledge how to transfer the carbon reduction to carbon credit. The interface is a methodology. So I think the methodology is very important to our society. So this is my the idea. Thank you.
Yeah, I think from my understanding, you said the carbon mechanism is the interface between carbon credit and what? Another side? Carbon reduction. Carbon reduction, yeah. So everything will be quantified and everything will be recorded so that you can claim it's your credit, yeah? So Tesla, actually in past 2 years, he earned more from carbon credit than selling the EV. So I think that could be a very good business for all of us. I believe TCC also owns some carbon credit in the pocket. In any time you can take out the carbon credit, either to use for his own company or to sell to the customer or to the other industry. I think very important everyone should have a carbon credit. Since all the regulation and carbon credit actually is man-made. It's man-made. You set the regulation, you set the carbon price, carbon tax, everything is man-made. So my question will go to Professor Stolten. Taiwan, how can Taiwan collaborate with, for example, Germany or EU in government level, right? So we can enhance or speed up our carbon neutrality. And the second question is, EU is promoting the startup in green energy or carbon neutrality in a very prosperous way. How can you recommend that to the young people or young startup in Taiwan? So one is enhance Taiwan's collaboration in government level. Another is how do you suggestion to the startup, young startup in Taiwan? Yeah, Professor Stolten, is my question clear to you? Your microphone.
Professor, you have to unmute.
Can I hear from you? Can you open your microphone?
Acoustically, I did not get everything, but I tried to answer as much as I can. So we have, for young people particularly, if you focus on that, we have always exchange programs, and I think exchange programs between universities are a very good tool, and also the research institutes like my institute, Research Center of Jülich, where we can host exchange students, and we are very much willing to do so. This is one point for young students. The general cooperation with the governments is difficult. It has to be. It's difficult to answer for me because I'm not a governmental representative. I'm just a professor in that regard. And but generally, I guess the approach is very welcome. And a lot happened through international trade. And a lot happened through the exchange of technology. So Taiwan is very strong in chip industry. What will be a major point in, I think, is the control of this whole system I just presented. Because what you see is a myriad of single, pretty small units. So if I say a 7 megawatt unit as a windmill, it sounds big. If you compare that to a power station, it's tiny. It's really tiny. They have a gigawatt, so that's 1,000 megawatts. And one has to control that. I think this is a technological area where Taiwan could really make a point. And it's also important to be able to make a black start of these grids. Bilateral agreements are pursued between Germany and some countries for hydrogen production, for instance. So there are opportunities on that level. If I go a little beyond EU and Germany, then there is the IEA, where I think people can very well contribute in the scientific panels. There is a hydrogen panel, there is a fuel cell panel, there is a windmill panel. There are different scientific panels where one can contribute. And that's where I personally got a lot of my international experience from, because you always see many countries and see reports from many countries and get the ideas also which you can exchange and see the technological status. I don't know whether this is an answer to your question, but I can't comment directly on Taiwanese, German governmental relations, because I'm just not a governmental representative.
Yeah. Have you been to Taiwan, Professor Stolten? Have you been to Taiwan? Have you visited Taiwan in the past?
Yes,
okay.
A couple of times.
Great, great, great. So you know Taiwan well. So I believe...
I know Taiwan.
Great, great. You could be a good ambassador for Taiwan to EU in this field, right?
Let's say I don't know Taiwan, I've seen Taiwan.
Oh, okay.
Once you've been there a couple of times, you don't know the whole country, and you generally saw some aspects which were very impressive to me.
Yeah, then I think you should have a longer stay in Taiwan. I believe we have a really great opportunity. For example, Taiwan made most of the functional textile to the whole world. Taiwan make most of the PC for the whole world. And also now Taiwan is making the renewable energy, for example, photovoltaic and cement, green cement. So I think there are lots of opportunity for not just the young guy, also for the old guy. How can we pass our experience to the young guy? And young guy should have disruptive technology to try to transform the technology, transform the industry. So if we put these two together, I believe Taiwan can contribute. Actually, EU is the very open market and community. What I learned from EU, they have open X. X is everything, open X. And from now to 2050, almost 30% of the technology for carbon neutrality is in the early stage. I think that's leave the space and leave the opportunity for all of us. So I would like to thank the three panelists for your sharing and for your insight. I hope that provide us some idea and provide more opportunity, certainly the challenge for all of us. So thank you for your listening and attention. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks to our moderator and panelists. Are we going the next Q&A or just put an end?
You mean we have the Q&A stage?
Yeah, maybe some more questions.
Yeah, Q&A for the audience?
Yes. So, do you have any questions for the panelists? All right. So first of all.
Thank you. My name is Wang Shuoyi. I have a question for Director Stolten. Director Stolten, my question is, you talk about hydrogen as a solution, but the hydrogen, how do we acquire? Because if we do electrolysis, we consume other energy. If those energy is not green, that's not the green energy, another solution for hydrogen. So how do we acquire hydrogen? Is my question. Thanks.
Okay, you are expert of hydrogen, right? Thank you. Professor Stolten?
Yes. Well, the answer is very simple. And you basically laid the groundwork for the answer. The hydrogen or the electricity you put into the electrolysis needs to be green energy. The first important point is to really transform the electricity sector towards renewable and green energy. And that means solar and wind. Maybe in Taiwan, I'm not so sure, you might have, you mentioned that geothermal as well. In Germany, geothermal doesn't play a big role. It's just for household heating, not for power generation. But these are the main sources you have. And hydrogen indeed doesn't make sense when you don't have green energy. But what's also needs to be stressed is you need to consider the transition period. So it might make sense for a short while to produce a hydrogen in order to gear up the hydrogen production with blue hydrogen, which is natural gas plus CCS. Right now we have gray hydrogen, which is just natural gas reformed hydrogen. Also, by reforming, one produces hydrogen from natural gas and emits the CO2. But it's clear, it needs to be green.
Yeah, I think just like money, if you make more money than you need, then you can storage. You can transform the electricity into hydrogen. If you don't have enough electricity, then you just need to use it, don't need to transform. So all depends on how sufficient of the energy, or especially renewable energy for Taiwan and also for the global community. So thank you for your question. Okay, second one. Yeah, please.
Thank you. My question goes to Mr. Stolten. So I'm from Mongolia. So he mentioned about getting independent from the energy consumption from Russia and China. So as a citizen of Mongolian, I have a question about the energy independence for my country, because now about the hydrogen, about the water renewable resource, we are a landlocked country. We don't have that much water resource to build up those factories manufacturing energy. I hope that Mr. Stolten knows about Mongolian landscape and uniqueness. So what do you think about, what would you suggest for us as a renewable energy resource? Would be the wind resource or solar panel? Which one would be more fitable for Mongolian environment?
You catch it? You welcome. You are very welcome by all the young audience. You get all the questions. Okay,
I'm sorry. The point is we calculate that. So we have a land availability program which calculates the available land, and land means also rooftops and so on. So the available sites for different types of energy. And then we consider the demand and match the whole thing in the program, and then we can tell whether one can furnish it or not under certain cost considerations. It's hard to tell because we never calculated Taiwan right now. But we did that for multiple countries. And generally, it turns out that countries have much more opportunity than they think today because of bigger installations of floating windmills, So there are so many technological options which are also not that expensive, but it has to be figured out minutely. One can't just say this is good, this is bad. So you have a shore which is flat, but you have very steep mountains, so it will be very different in different areas too.
Okay, I think it's not an easy answer. So I believe regarding to the energy, we should networking with the international community. I believe we will sooner or later to purchase the hydrogen from Australia or from some other country. And also we should seeking for the multiple energy source for Taiwan, not just the single source, multiple energy source to stabilize the power supply. So there are full of opportunity and challenge. So I think there's about the time for the panel discussion. So thank again to the three panelists and for your question.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our moderator and the three panelists. And now please return to your seat. Thank you very much. And actually, I think we're really grateful for having such an opportunity of master gathering and to receive so much valuable information and experiences on carbon reduction solutions as well. And I hope all of you also learn more on today's net zero topic. Afterwards, we'll arrange you one-to-one conversations for guests who are reserved already. So stay tuned and we'll bring you the masters. All right, now TTA second season Master Talk is coming to an end. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for your participation and we wish TTA 4th anniversary happy birthday too. This is Wendy and see you next time on TTA. All right, and don't forget, here we have some more conversations right here. So now we are going to put an end to today's event. Thank you very much. All right, and here some of our startup teams are ready for the conversations to master here. So don't be shy. Please feel free to come over here. That we have so many masters here, experts here for the social networking with you. All right. 好，那么我们今天的活动呢，也就到这边顺利的圆满告一个段落。那我相信现场呢，其实我们有很多的这个新创团队也都在这里呢，来直接跟我们的大师来取经，所以请大家不要客气。我们现场的很多 startup teams， 好，大家可以往前，然后呢，来跟我们现场的几位嘉宾，还有我们的专家们一起来交流。